Nation and Lakota from the Lower Brule Nation.
My name is Nick Estes. As Leona said, I'm a enrolled member of the Lower Brule Sioux tribe from the Lakota Nation, and one of the things that I want to bring up is today, February 27th, is Wounded Knee Liberation Day, and I want to honor our Oglala relatives who marched today to remember the 71-day takeover of the Wounded Knee town. But I also want to give a little bit of history about why it's important to celebrate Wounded Knee Liberation Day, but also call for the abolishment of Columbus Day in the city of Albuquerque. One of the things that they were protesting back in 1973 is the fact that the United States government refuses to acknowledge the 300 men, women, and children that were murdered in December 29th, 1890 at Wounded Knee Creek. It was Bigfoot's band, Hehaka Gleshka. They were murdered because they left the reservation, and it was part of an ongoing campaign of genocide. And to this day, the 7th Cavalry, the people that committed this atrocity, were awarded 18 Medals of Honor in commemoration of killing Indians. And so this history of genocide is embedded within our communities, within our daily lives. Oftentimes, we are not given the chance to even mourn the fact that our ancestors were murdered by the United States government and the cavalry. Today, we're still ungrievable, especially in cities like Albuquerque, when two Navajo men are brutally murdered on this street, and there's no public mourning for them. The city of Albuquerque, the mayor of this city, Mayor Barry, didn't show up to any of the memorials. He's refused to acknowledge Indian presence and Indian lives in this city, and the fact that APD, as well as other city officials, continue to ignore our presence and our existence in this city. So our lives become disposable, they become unbelievable, and so one of the things that we're doing here to abolish Columbus Day is to remember these atrocities, these past atrocities of genocide. Our relatives that are out here, whether you're native or non-native, you are not responsible for the history that your ancestors committed, but this present moment is a product of that history, and you're responsible for it. So with that, I wanted to just thank everyone that came out today, all our allies, the Native community of Albuquerque. They never get recognized in this city, so Hokahe.
Today is Wounded Knee 2, 1973, 42 years ago. Some of our people went to Wounded Knee to make a stand, to make a point. We were tired of being discriminated against. We were tired of the genocide. We were tired of the alcoholism, the diseases. And they stayed 71 days in weather like this, but it was a lot colder. So that's why I'm here. But today, we're here to protest Columbus Day. This is the only state in the region that still has Columbus Day on the books. We have a large Native population in this state. You know, if we can change Columbus Day in South Dakota, we all know how right wing that is up there. You know, we can do that here.
Yeah.
This is our country. Remember, Albuquerque is built on native land, native graves. You know, so we just want to honor our ancestors today. Hokahe.
Thank you, Sam. Next, we will have Miss Bianca Cowboy. She's also a member of the Red Nation, and she is here as a representative of the UNM Kiva Club as well. Thank you, Miss Bianca Cowboy.
Hi, hello, Yache. Thank you everyone for coming out. Friends, family, relatives, thank you for coming out and supporting our cause and why we're here today. So I want to tell you why I am in support of Columbus Day being abolished in the city of New Mexico. In the state of New Mexico. But right now, me and a group of students at UNM have been focusing on getting it abolished on campus. And the reason why we're doing this is celebrating Columbus, who was a rapist, an oppressor of indigenous peoples, didn't even come to America, and we need that to be reflected in our history, the things that we celebrate as a city and as a state and as a nation. All throughout America, people are beginning to acknowledge this, and they're changing it. Even non-natives are taking the initiative to acknowledge that a lot of indigenous peoples were killed, and they were turned into slaves. And today we're still acknowledging that history, and the effects are harsh. We have generations of people that are suffering from addiction and still being oppressed through colonialism, and we're just slaves to our own mind and the things that we believe are true. But I want to thank you all for coming out today. This is so important to me. I want this to happen because 20 years from now, when we're gone, or excuse me, when 20 years from now, like when my daughter is my age, she's going to see that we were here today and we were encouraging history to be changed. And that's what this is. We're all becoming a part of history. But yes, celebrate yourselves. Thank you for coming out today on this beautiful snowy day and braving the cold for us. This is really important to us, and I hope you'll stay and listen to why and ask our city to get rid of this day. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I also need to mention next Wednesday, me and a group of students are presenting this bill, this resolution to abolish Columbus Day from being celebrated on all UNM campuses. And instead celebrated either as Indigenous Peoples Resistance and Resilience Day or Indigenous Peoples Resistance Day. And I encourage you all today to take a time out after this to read our history and why resistance is so important to us, and why that is why I am here today, resisting the things that people that are 200 years gone still wanted from me today, and why I'm here. So thank you.
Thank you, Miss Bianca Cowboy. And thank you to the UNM Kiva Club for taking the initiative to set in motion the spur of energy that's going on campus to abolish Columbus Day, not just in the city, but also at the University of New Mexico. Next we'll have Melanie Yazzie. Woo! So Melanie Yazzie is a member of the Red Nation. She is Diné, and she's going to come up here and tell us more about the Red Nation.
Yeah, hey, hi everybody. Thank you for coming out. I'm just going to read a statement here. It's more of a manifesto, so that's what's going to happen. The Red Nation formed a few months ago out of a desire to contribute to the widespread resurgence of strong, vocal, organized, and radical Indigenous struggle in Albuquerque and beyond. We formed to address the marginalization and invisibility of Indigenous struggles within mainstream social justice organizing, and to speak out and strategically fight against the ongoing destruction of Indigenous life and land. From the disproportionate violence that Indigenous people experience from citizens and cops alike here in Albuquerque, to the ongoing theft of Indigenous water rights by big cities and corporations through so-called legal settlements, to the horrifying impact of nuclear and uranium development in Indigenous communities, it is clear that Indigenous people must simply fight to stay alive. The Red Nation stands with all Indigenous people and their accomplices in the defense of land and livelihood against this violence. And with you, with all of you, reclaims Albuquerque as an Indigenous space. We are a council of Indigenous and non-Indigenous activists, concerned community members, students, organizers, revolutionaries, intellectuals, educators, and longtime members of the Indigenous struggle who are dedicated to building a widespread movement to liberate Indigenous peoples from colonialism. We do this through centering Indigenous agendas, peoples, and struggles, working with allies to form coalitions to successfully engage in these struggles, and by collectively working to smash colonialism and its violence against Native people in all structural and material forms. We continue a long and unfinished history of Indigenous resistance by starting in our own backyard, reviving an Indigenous-led movement here in Albuquerque that has been dormant for far too long. Indeed, it has been 40 years and many lives lost since an organized Indigenous-led force with this kind of agenda has existed in Albuquerque. It is time to stand up again and take steps together to demand the end to a fundamentally oppressive system that affects us all by perpetuating violence against Indigenous life. We ask you, Albuquerque, and the world to stand with us today and always. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Melanie. At this time, we're going to open up the podium or the floor, as it were, to our community members. And first, I would like to recognize our city councilor, Ray Garduño, who has supported us here today, and I just want to thank him for attending while we're all standing out here in the snow, and also the Lakota Northern Drum Group. We would like to welcome them and give great gratitude to their presence here, as the drum is the heartbeat for all of us as Indigenous people. And the drum group here is Hawk Soldier. So will Mr. Father Frank Quintana please come up here? Today we have a lot of supporters, as you can see on our podium. This is not just an action by the Red Nation. We are supported and endorsed by several local organizations, and more to come. So without further ado, here's Father Frank Quintana of Blessed Oscar Romero Catholic Community.
When Christopher Columbus first set foot on the white sands of that Caribbean island over 500 years ago, he performed a ceremony to take possession of the land for the King and Queen of Spain, acting under the international laws of Western Christendom. Although the story of Columbus's discovery has taken on mythological proportions in most of the Western world, few people are aware of his act of possession was based on a theological opinion now known in history as the doctrine of discovery, which specifically sanctioned and promoted the conquest, colonization, and exploitation of non-Christian nations and their territories. Thus, Columbus sailed west across the Sea of Darkness in 1492 with the express understanding that he was authorized to take possession of any lands he discovered that were not under dominion of any Christian ruler. This theological opinion, by the way, is absolutely antithetical to the gospel of Jesus Christ. No thoughtful believer today would hold to such privileges, and these kinds of erroneous religious opinions develop when the institutional church bureaucracy is bedfellow with the secular governmental entity in order to garner favor and its own security within the established order. And we see that rampant today when people in particular religious segments are buddy-buddy with the corrupt government. It is important to recognize that the grim acts of genocide and conquest committed by Columbus and his men against the peaceful indigenous people of the Caribbean were sanctioned by this damnable doctrine of discovery, which was part of the thinking in Christendom, both Catholic and Protestant. Indeed, this theory was frequently used by Christian European conquerors in the Americas to justify an incredibly brutal system of colonization. This being contrary to the ethical teachings of Jesus that said, love your neighbor as you love yourself, and whatever you do to my sisters and brothers, you do to me. Fast forward from Columbus to 321 years later. In 1823, the Christian doctrine of discovery was quietly adopted into the U.S. law by the Supreme Court in the celebrated case Johnson versus McIntosh. Writing for a unanimous court, Chief Justice John Marshall observed that Christian European nations had assumed ultimate dominion over the lands of America during the Age of Discovery, and that upon discovery, indigenous peoples had lost their right to complete sovereignty as independent nations. What? Anyway. And they only retained a right of occupancy in their own land. In other words, First Nations were subject to the ultimate authority of the nations of Christendom to claim possession of a given region of native lands. Ironically, the same year that the Johnson versus McIntosh decision was handed down, one of the U.S. founding fathers, James Madison, wrote, "Religion is not the purview of human government. Religion is essentially distinct from civil government and exempt from its cognizance. A connection between them is injurious to both." So therefore, I am calling to bring an end to 500 years of injustice to indigenous peoples. And so, in doing so, and in repentance and reparation, I propose that non-native people, especially Christians, especially Catholic Christians, unite in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere to impress upon Pope Francis, who seems to present a kinder and gentler face, to impress upon him when he visits the U.S. in the fall, how important it is for him to revoke in a formal ceremony with indigenous people present any papal bull and all church documents that gave authority to the archaic, erroneous, reprehensible, and anti-gospel teaching of the doctrine of discovery, which allowed the conquering and oppression of the indigenous peoples of this hemisphere and the world over. And so I call upon the Pope in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yeah!
Thank you, Father Francis. And I just like to mention on that note that at the UN level, there are faith-based communities and entire organized churches who are actually working to dismantle and not allow the doctrine of discovery to be utilized by their organized religious organization. And so I'd like to thank Father Francis and all of the faith-based communities who are out there supporting us. Next, we will hear from our city councilor, Mr. Ray Garduño.
Thank you very much. Let me just very quickly tell you that where I come from, I grew up, was born in Namben, so in my body courses the blood of indigenous background and heritage, and also the Spanish, who were the folks who took over this area. Throughout my life, I fought against that. I know that a lot of times people think that there are three cultures. Well, there are not three cultures. There are two oppressors and one culture, and that culture has been oppressed over these many years. It's time to stop. Some of the remnants of all that is the fact that we still celebrate these racist folks who came over and thought that they had dominion over everyone. And I don't care what they use as far as religious, legal, all of these other excuses are just excuses. We still
Yeah!
that very yoke. Anyway, it's time for us to take that yoke off. As president of the city council, I will be working with all of you folks to make sure that all this happens. I commit myself, and we will fight hard. And thank you very much for being here. Also, where I come from, this is not anything to be afraid of or think that the snow is something bad. It is something good. Where I come from, this is a cleansing act.
Yes!
The Spirit has sent us the snow so that we can cleanse our bodies. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Ray Garduño. Thank you to the Hawk Soldier. Thank you to the Red Nation. Thank you to the UNM Kiva Club. Thank you to everyone here today who is supporting this initiative. The Red Nation is just starting today to announce this publicly to everyone, but that doesn't mean that there is no room for others to be involved. And we are also acknowledging the hard work of all the indigenous organizations, all the grassroots struggles, all the people who are working together to make this a better place. Not just in Albuquerque, but across the state, across the nation, across Turtle Island, and in the world. We cannot do this alone. And the intersectionality of all these issues, whether it's colonialism, ongoing resource extraction, the issues that we don't even know about because we're here today. There's so many things that we can't see or experience because we don't see everything in the world. But as people living together in New Mexico, I think we can take this small step and work on this change together collaboratively to make that symbolic step toward a better Albuquerque and a better New Mexico. So please contact us. You can look at our Facebook, We have a website that will be launched soon, and then our Twitter. So the email is contact@the.Red.Nation. The speakers will be available for interviews. If you have any questions, there's our contact information. And this concludes our press conference for today. We would like to thank all of the people who gave their lives at Wounded Knee, all of our ancestors who are buried here in the state and all over the world. We would not be here today if it wasn't for their lives and their work, their struggle that we're carrying on today. Yeah. Okay, so our press conference is over. What we're going to do now is have the drum group. They're going to do an honor song, or they're going to do AIM song. Okay, and then we're going to open it up to our speakers who came here for our speak out. So if you would like to have a couple words at the podium, please come see me right now. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, my name is Barbara Byrne. I am third generation adopted Umpapa Lakota Standing Rock Sioux, One Bulls Band, and I was at Wounded Knee for a week during the occupation. What I would like you all to remember is that there were 2 people who died during that time also, and another was shot in the hand. So please remember the families who are doing without members now who died during the occupation itself. Thank you for your time, and please continue the struggle.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Barbara Byrne. Okay, next we're going to hear from Fizz of the Students for Justice in Palestine. And then after that, we're going to hear another song from our drum group, and we'll have a couple more speakers, and then we'll be wrapping it up.
Okay. Hi, my name is Fizz. I'm a member of Students for Justice in Palestine. This is Beck.
What's up?
And we won't take up a lot of time. We just wanted to say that UNM Students for Justice in Palestine supports the anti-colonial struggle in the U.S. and across the planet. And we know that it's important to ground, or I should say for myself, as a settler, I know that it's important to ground my anti-colonial struggle against the state of Israel in my anti-colonial struggle here in the U.S. So I identify as an ally and as a accomplice against the U.S. settler colonial state, and we support the mission to get rid of Columbus Day. So let's abolish it now.
Yeah.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you, supporters. And if you are representing an organization and you would like to support and endorse the movement, please contact us at contact@the-red-nation. So the last speaker for today we will listen to is Ms. Paige Murphy.
Hey everyone, my name is Paige Murphy. I'm with the Red Nation. I'm also with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And I just kind of want to be brief because I know it's cold and I want to wrap things up. But the whole reason why we're doing this is to make sure that, Christopher Columbus and the legacy of genocide and, colonialism is still being challenged to this day. We want people to know that we're still here and that we're still resisting, and that as Native people, we're continuing that history of resistance. And if you go to the reservation, you'll see that colonialism is not over. Indigenous people, they experience a disproportionate level of poverty, homelessness, health problems, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, resource extraction, which includes, coal, uranium, gas. Native land, the reality is that native land is still being stolen to this day. I know it was kind of mentioned earlier, but, the new Columbus is a Peabody coal mine, the Dole Company. A lot of our sacred sites are still being stolen to this day. The Apache, one of the Apache sacred sites was recently stolen by gas companies. So we're still resisting, and our water rights are being stolen. And, this is the mentality that drives war. People talk about the profit motive, and this is it. There's still a war being waged on indigenous land. It's just that people don't realize it. They want us to be quiet and complacent, and we're here standing up and telling them that we're not going to be abused anymore. We're not going to take it, and that we're still fighting, we're still resisting. Thanks.
Yeah. Tell them.
Okay, thanks, Paige. I'm glad you mentioned Oak Flats. It is really important to know what we're all here for and why we're doing it. And some of us may have different reasons. Some of us may have different methods. I work on issues to fight nuclear colonialism, nuclear colonization. And so the work I do is mostly to protect the sacred element of water, especially from uranium mining. And that's occurring on our sacred sites all over the country, the Grand Canyon, the Black Hills, Mount Taylor. And so it is important to stand in solidarity with these fights at Oak Flats, in the Black Hills, and wherever injustice is. It's not just, I like what Paige said, the new Columbus is Peabody. It's Energy Fuels. It's the fracking companies up in northern New Mexico. And so we'll continue to fight these struggles along with abolishing Columbus Day. Okay, so right now, I just want to remind folks, we got a petition going around, so if you didn't sign the petition, please do so. It's a good way to stay in contact with the Red Nation. And we're going to start the round dance now over in this area where there's some more room. And so everyone please join in. This will close our events for today. Yeah, drive safely and stay warm. Thank you for your support.